Have you ever felt a fierce, primal urge to protect your dog from any harm? What does it say about a person who feels toward their dog what a parent feels toward a child? Is that protectiveness an overreaction, or is something far more psychologically significant quietly happening? What if feeling protective over your dog like a child is one of the most emotionally revealing things about you? What if that ferocity, that willingness to step between your dog and any danger, reveals something profound? And what if the people who feel this way are not confused about dogs, but deeply clear about love? There is a specific kind of protectiveness many dog owners know well. It is not mild concern for a possession. It is the visceral, instantaneous protectiveness of someone who would step in front of harm. It activates when someone approaches the dog aggressively, when a larger animal comes too close, when the dog is at the vet, confused and frightened, when the world threatens what this person loves most. From the outside, this intensity might look disproportionate, but from inside, the psychology of the person experiencing it, something coherent, profound, and deeply human is taking place. Psychologists who study attachment, parental psychology, and the human-animal bond have spent years examining why some people develop this parental protectiveness toward their dogs. What they found is illuminating. This protectiveness is not a category error, not confusion between a child and an animal. It is the activation of systems designed for care, and that the dog has genuinely earned. The person who feels protective over their dog like a child is not projecting. They are responding to something that is genuinely, biologically, psychologically real. Understanding this is not about validating every expression of the feeling, but about recognizing what that feeling actually is and what it tells us about the person who carries it. The question worth asking is not whether this protectiveness is excessive. The deeper question is what is actually being activated, and what does it reveal about the person who feels it? What is happening in the brain of a person who feels this fierce urgency to protect their dog, and why does it feel so much like what parents describe feeling for their children? Is it simply love taken to an extreme? Or is it the activation of a specific biological system, one with its own neural architecture, its own hormonal signature, and its own ancient evolutionary purpose? And what does it mean that the dog has become the recipient of this protective system that an animal, through the specific nature of its relationship with the person, has activated something this deep? There is something being illuminated here about the nature of love, about what it means to take another being's safety as seriously as your own, or more seriously than your own. Understanding what activates this protectiveness and what it reveals about those who feel it most intensely is understanding something important about the architecture of human love. The human protective system, the set of neurological and hormonal responses that motivate a caregiver to defend a vulnerable dependent, is ancient, specific, and powerful. That the brain cannot easily distinguish a loved dog from a human infant at the level of its most ancient protective circuits is one of the most remarkable findings in this field. This system evolved not as a response to a particular species, but to specific features, signaling vulnerability, dependence, and the need for care. These features are called Kinshin schema, or baby schema. Baby schema includes large eyes, rounded features, and general softness, the biological signal that says, this being is vulnerable, this being needs protection. Dogs, through thousands of years of coevolution with humans, developed facial features that strongly activate baby schema responses. Dogs selectively evolved to engage the human caregiving system. Research shows that viewing dog faces activates the same brain regions as viewing human infant faces. The brain, at the level of its protective circuitry, does not sharply distinguish between them. The parental protectiveness a person feels toward their dog is not a metaphor. It is, neurologically speaking, the activation of the actual parental protective system. John Bowlby described two complementary systems: the attachment system, which seeks proximity to a stronger figure, and the caregiving system, the complement that makes us provide protection to the vulnerable. The caregiving system is activated when we perceive someone as vulnerable and dependent, and it motivates us to protect them, care for them, and ensure their safety. The dog activates the caregiving system with a completeness and consistency rare even in human relationships. The dog is perpetually in the role of the dependent, never outgrowing the need for this person's protection. The experience of protective love toward a dog is not a lesser version of parental love. At the neural level, it is the same system running pointed in a different but no less genuine direction. This means the experience of protective love toward a dog is not a lesser version of parental love. It is, at the neural level, the same system running pointed in a different but no less genuine direction. Human children grow and leave. Human relationships develop their own complexity. But the dog remains, throughout its life, in fundamental dependence on its person. This perpetual dependence is psychologically significant. The caregiver whose child has grown, or who has no children, or who has a capacity for protective love that human relationships do not fully engage, often finds that capacity activated most completely by their dog. There is also felt responsibility, the experienced sense that this being's well-being is contingent on your vigilance, your care, your presence. Felt responsibility amplifies protectiveness enormously. Parents describe felt responsibility as the most defining feature of parenthood, the knowledge that a small, vulnerable being depends entirely on them. Many dog owners describe precisely this. When a person perceives a threat to a being they are bonded to and responsible for, the amygdala activates with urgency. This activation is the beginning of the protective response. This activation is rapid and preconscious, faster than deliberate thought. It mirrors the activation pattern observed in parents who perceive threats to their children. The body mobilizes before the mind processes. For people whose dog has activated the caregiving system deeply, this amygdala response is correspondingly intense. They do not merely become concerned, they become protectively aroused, ready to act. Oxytocin rises abundantly in human-dog relationships. Research shows that the human-dog bond features some of the highest oxytocin elevations observed in any human relationship. High oxytocin intensifies the caregiving response. The more bonded a person is to their dog, the more intensely the protective system activates when the dog is threatened. Oxytocin and protectiveness are directly linked. There is also the anterior insula, the brain region, associated with the felt pain of witnessing harm to those we love. For people with strong protective attachment to their dog, seeing the dog in distress produces genuine felt pain. The dog's pain activates the anterior insula, the neural circuitry that makes a parent wince when their child is hurt. For the deeply bonded person, the dog's pain is felt as their own. All of this describes an experience qualitatively identical to what parents report. The species of the beloved does not change the neurological experience of protective love. What happens physiologically when a person perceives a threat to their dog is not mild or controlled. It is a full-body mobilization, complete, urgent, and entirely proportional to what the bond has become. Adrenaline spikes. Heart rate surges. Attention narrows to a laser focus on the threat. The body enters the same high arousal state that has enabled parents to lift cars off children in emergencies. The autonomic nervous system does not calibrate this response based on species. It responds to the felt stake, and for the deeply bonded person, the felt stake in their dog's safety is total. Evolutionary psychologists describe kin selection logic, the idea that protective behavior is historically strongest toward genetic relatives, because their survival furthers the caregiver's genetic legacy. But human protective systems are not exclusively kin-based. Research on adoption and step-parenting shows that the caregiving system activates fully toward non-biological dependence. The dog, as a non-biological dependent, who nonetheless activates all the key triggers of the caregiving system: vulnerability, dependence, bonding, oxytocin. Baby schema is the most common and consistent example of this. Dog owners who witness their dog being threatened show cortisol elevations comparable to parents watching their children in danger. The physiological response is, in this sense, genuinely parental. The mutual gaze between a person and their dog produces oxytocin, in both creating a feedback loop of bonding that deepens the caregiving attachment over time. This mutual gaze is experienced by both parties as social and relational, and this relational quality deepens the experienced sense of responsibility and care. Research has found that the brain processes bonded dogs' faces in regions typically associated with beloved humans, not in regions associated with non-bonded animals or objects. The person who scans a crowded park for dangers their dog cannot see is not being overprotective. They are being exactly what their neurological bond with the dog has made them a caregiver doing their job. This neurological fact matters. The person who feels parental toward their dog is not applying a misplaced framework. Their brain genuinely processes the dog as a beloved social being. There is also chronic protective vigilance, the background alert that many dog owners maintain in daily life. They notice things others walk past: a car going too fast, an aggressive dog nearby. This vigilance is the caregiving system in action, the same background scan parents develop for anything that might harm the being they are responsible for. For people whose protective system has been fully activated, this vigilance is not experienced as exhausting. It is love expressed through the body, the felt cost of caring deeply. Now, let us talk about what this fierce protectiveness reveals about the person who feels it. Not everyone feels it with equal intensity, and the variation is psychologically meaningful. For many people, The intensity of protective feeling reflects the depth of the bond, but also something about their particular relationship with the caregiving role itself. Some people have an enormous capacity for protective love that human life has not fully engaged. Their circumstances, by choice or chance, have not placed them in the primary caregiver role for a dependent human. Their dog activates this capacity fully, and when the caregiving system is activated at its full capacity for the first time, the experience of that love and that protectiveness can be profound. For others, the protectiveness toward the dog is continuous, with how they relate to every vulnerable being in their life, toward children, toward elderly people, toward anything small and exposed. The dog is the most constant recipient of a protective love that is always operating, always oriented toward whatever being is most in need of shielding. This is the quality that makes the human-dog bond so extraordinary that it activates the same moral and biological systems as the deepest human bonds, producing the same depth of felt responsibility. The fierceness of protectiveness is often proportional to the purity of the love. The dog has not done anything to earn this protection beyond existing, trusting, and being present. That purity protection, extended not as transaction but as love that requires nothing, is one of the deepest forms of human moral feeling. The dog, more than almost any other being, activates it. The dog cannot call for help or navigate human world dangers independently. In this sense, the dog is perpetually childlike, and the person who recognizes this becomes its protector. The recognition of this vulnerability and the response to it is the essence of what it means to take someone under your care. Responding to it with protectiveness is enacting something morally real. For some, protectiveness toward their dog is entangled with a history of not having been protected themselves. The person who is not protected often becomes the fiercest protector of others. This is compensatory care, giving to another what was never given to oneself. And the dog, perpetually vulnerable and trusting, is the recipient who requires it most completely and accepts it most fully. For many deeply protective dog owners, the dog occupies a central place in their identity as a caretaker, a protector, someone whose love is expressed through ongoing vigilance. Now let us consider the types of people who feel this parental protectiveness toward their dogs most intensely. The feeling is common among deeply bonded owners, but the specific root varies meaningfully. There is the primary nurturer, someone whose identity is organized around caring for others and on whom everyone depends. Their dog is where this identity finds its most complete expression. Then there is the childless carer, someone who has not had children and whose full breadth of parental capacity has been unexpressed. Their dog has received it all. For the childless carer, the protectiveness is not a substitute. It is the genuine activation of their caregiving system directed toward a being who accepts it completely and returns everything they have. There is the recovering protector, someone whose caregiving role has ended, whose child has grown, or whose person has died. Their dog is who they now protect. For the recovering protector, the dog fills a profound absence, not by replacing what was lost, but by giving continued expression to a love that had no place to go. There is the fiercely loyal someone for whom loyalty is the central moral value, and protection its highest expression. They are not simply fond of their dog, they are in alliance with them. And there is the trauma-formed protector, someone whose experience of being unprotected has created a fierce determination never to leave a vulnerable being unguarded. Their dog activates all of this. For the trauma-formed protector, protecting their dog is not merely love. It is the ongoing enactment of a vow, a promise made, long before the dog arrived, about the kind of person they would become. Which of these resonates most with you? You may find yourself in more than one. The psychology of parental protectiveness toward a dog is layered, and the truest understanding of your own version matters. Now, let us go somewhere deeper. Because for many people who feel this fierce protectiveness toward their dog, something older than their adult psychology is at work, something formed in the experiences that first taught them what protection means. Think about the child who needed protection and did not receive it, who was small and exposed, and who learned that the world does not automatically keep small things safe. That child grew into an adult who watches, who scans, who stands between the dog and whatever is coming because they know, at a nervous system level, what it costs to be unprotected. This continuity between the child experience and the adult behavior is not a symptom of something unresolved. It is the nervous system honoring a map that was accurate then and remains accurate now. There is also the child who was the protector, the parentified child, the one who shielded others from an unpredictable adult. That role became their identity. Their dog is where it continues. For this person, protecting the dog is not experienced as burden or anxiety. It is experienced as being fully themselves, inhabiting the role that is most natural, familiar, and meaningful to them. The dog cannot outgrow its vulnerability. And for the person whose identity is built around protection, this permanence is not a problem. It is a gift, the gift of a role that does not end. The relationship remains the protector and the protected, and the person who inhabits this role naturally finds not only purpose, but a love that never becomes complicated or conditional. Researchers studying the human-animal bond have noted that people who develop parental protectiveness toward their dogs show elevated scores on measures of empathy, compassion, and social responsibility. This correlation is not accidental. Extending genuine protective care to a non-human dependent is an expression of moral and emotional breadth of a self oriented toward protecting the vulnerable. The fierce protectiveness a person feels toward their dog is not a deviation from human nature. It is an expression of it, the caregiving system, doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is the caregiving system functioning at full capacity in the direction of a being that has earned every bit of it. In a world that often asks us to care less, this is worth recognizing. There is something the fiercely protective dog owner demonstrates that love can cross species, that it needs no rational justification, that its most powerful expression is sometimes enacted toward a being who will never understand it. If you feel protective over your dog like a parent, if that urgency is real and total, you are not excessive or confused. You are someone whose caregiving system found its fullest expression. You are someone who extended genuine moral care to a being the world does not always count. Someone who protects without requiring that the protected understand. Someone whose love is expressed through vigilance. If this resonated, please like it and subscribe. And in the comments, tell us, what does it feel like when something threatens your dog, and what would you do without a second thought?